We make the future. Utopias of a climate responsible world 2035. Arctic Snapshots.
Greed for climate business. A green transition with winners and losers. November 20th, 2035. Energo Incorporated offices.
This is a disaster. I just had a call from the CEO. His social media account is being bombarded with hateful comments. We must do something about the smear campaign before it gets out of hand. Are you done writing that public statement? How dare these activists accuse us of greenwashing? We've done everything according to the highest standards. You Swedes are impossible to please. This is absurd. Of course we are climate responsible. It is the most profitable option. We have successfully transitioned our business from fossils to green options over the past years. We do climate risk management.
But
We clearly intend to be among the winners in the global competition over climate technologies. And why not? We can afford it because many European countries have protective legislation that makes it harder for Asian countries to access clean technology market in the EU. And our home country, the US, is engaged in green transition partnerships in South America. And in the High Ambition Coalition on Arctic Climate Responsibility, no one is left behind. Gents, are you listening?
look, I get that, Luann. We're not greenwashing. But sometimes our climate responsibility is in contradiction with other key values and norms of our society, including environmental protection and human rights. We must also consider this, because whatever happens, we don't want to end up on the list. November 21st, 2035. Green Act Cafe.
In today's news, the G20 meeting is closing to an end in Jakarta. Despite the continued North-South division on climate negotiations, the G20 countries are expected to come up with a climate agreement. Over the past few years, G20 meetings have become more significant than the UN climate meetings in defining climate targets. This illustrates how much great powers and major emitters still dominate climate negotiations. In Europe, the EU's climate tariffs on steel and cement have yielded economic benefits. According to the Commission's statement, next year they will be expanded to cover various components of electric cars, which is expected to have a negative impact on Asian competitors. And here in Sweden, the American company Energo Incorporated has announced that it will shift entirely into carbon-free steel in its wind farm production. The company has become known as a climate leader due to its responsible rhetoric and advanced technologies.
Energo! Hey, isn't that the company you're campaigning against?
Yeah. We're going picketing outside their headquarters next week. We're fed up with that lot. Did you know they have set up wind farms in the fragile Arctic environment and neglected the rights of indigenous peoples? All the while they rave over their miraculous technologies and geoengineering solutions. It's disgusting. The Green Act Club has been raising awareness about Energo's recent blunders in social media. If we can keep this up, they'll end up on the list.
So you're trying to get them on the list despite all the good stuff they've done. Isn't that a bit overzealous?
No. We have a moral duty to protect the local landscape and traditional lifestyles. This is the most efficient way of doing what's best for the environment. November 22nd, 2035. Pielekaisen National Park. Finally, out in the wild.
Sounds like you had one hell of a week, hon.
God, I'm so relieved I got that press statement out. I have no idea how things are going to play out, all things considered. The company might take a big hit.
Jens, have you considered working for a local company instead? Sure, the pay is good, but it's not like we can't afford to downshift. I don't want you to burn out.
No, I think it's a good job. I like it there. All investments here in Sweden are screened for their climate effects, and Energo Incorporated passed the review with straight A's. Our company's climate technologies in general contribute to tackling the effects of climate change, which naturally enhances Sweden's national security too. I'm glad they decided to invest in Sweden, although we're much better off than countries dependent on fossil fuels. It is an improvement that states now compete more with climate technologies than guns. Even those frisky Americans. I told Luancio to try skiing out here sometime. The night sky really puts things into the right perspective.
Yeah, you can't slap a price tag on everything. Although that's what everyone's trying to do these days.
True, but I'm done thinking about work for now. I'm taking Monday off and someone else can pick up where I left. I swear, Luan is trying to work me to death. Just as I was leaving the office, she needed my help for a presentation, and she'd left this note on my desk.
So much has happened during the past 10 years to elevate climate responsibility to the core of global politics and economy. What do you view as the key developments?
November 20th, 2035. Energo's office.
Jens! Where are you? Early weekend, huh? This is so typical of him. The environmentalists are accusing my company of greenwashing, and I could have really used his help preparing for a very important presentation. Oh, he left me a note. It is true that so much has happened during the past 10 years. I'll be here all night, so I might as well write something about the company's history and my own journey.
Alaska, 2025.
Okay, I can already tell that this is going to cost us. How bad is it exactly?
I'm not gonna lie, Luan. Extreme weather events are wreaking havoc on our entire system. And what is worse, thawing permafrost is destroying the infra, even though we're working overtime to keep the place operational.
It's not the thawing permafrost itself I'm worried about, but the economic costs. We are building on high-risk permafrost, and I fear that eventually the costs of insurance will be skyrocketing. It might not take that long until insurance companies will have the power to shape patterns of investments. Shoot, if we keep mucking about and don't come up with a long-term plan, we'll be losing money. But if we're among the first to react, we are also among the first to profit.
At least the weather is nice today. You know, I saw a white caribou this morning. A good omen, maybe.
Yeah, look, I have to make a few phone calls. This was the beginning of a very busy time in my life. We made some big decisions in the company board. So, the big question is, do we continue our operations here in Alaska or find the means to adjust? We Americans are sought after in the Nordic mining industry because of the European de-risking policies.
Let's start mining here in Alaska. It's going to be a big thing here as well.
I support Luan. EU's strict green regulations make it too difficult to export minerals there. Green trade war, why not extract them in Europe?
The US election was won by technology enthusiast Melvin Krust. There were tensions at home. Me and my husband divorced. I moved to Stockholm. I feared that it would be hard to find my place in a foreign city, but things weren't that much different. Like my home country, Sweden was also polarized. Nonetheless, the green energy transition advanced quickly, and even the populists went against it. Guess why? Because of horse trading. Other parties promised not to accept too many climate refugees. This broad political support also enabled Nordic countries to lead the ending of fossil subsidies. The local activist scene was very vocal. Environmentalists joined forces with indigenous peoples, demanding action and responsibility. This was necessary because the Arctic Council never fully recovered from the halting of cooperation in 2022. Provoking these people could easily lead to companies losing their face, investments, and profits. The competition was hard, But I wasn't afraid. I was there when Energo made its first great results in Sweden, hiring new staff and setting new standards. It has been an interesting blend between intense business and relaxed local way of living, which I'm still getting used to.
Ska vi fika och diskutera?
Oh no, not again. I was able to hire extremely skilled people into my team, including Jens Nielsen, Corporate Social Responsibility Advisor. Jens, let's talk about the company vision. Briefly, please. What's the big picture?
Well, let's start with the re-emergence of climate issues in the Arctic security debate. We're prioritizing climate security now that Putin's regime has collapsed. Of course, Russia still remains an authoritarian state. Anyway, it was the thawing permafrost and its impacts on fossil infra that contributed to Putin's dismay. And when it comes to climate politics, the G20 has increasingly begun to spell out conditions that support its economic interests in green transition. Even in the Arctic context, the US has definitely begun to favor the G20 over the Arctic Council. This overall shift underlines that the climate crisis is, above all, an economic question. Luan, you know the risks and opportunities of global warming better than I do. The G20 has also exchanged lessons from national and regional emission trading schemes. And then, my favorite topic. The G20 has established an international framework for regulating geoengineering.
Okay, but before you lecture me about geoengineering, Jens, I was hoping you could tell me something concrete. What do you think the company ought to do next so that we can stay ahead and be the trendsetter we want to be?
The company ought to set the standards for next generation wind power technology.
What?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
And I think we should have carbon negative oat milk here at the office. The greener option is the most profitable option, even in the small details.
And that's what has happened since the mid-2020s.
The success and hardships we're tackling today, you already know.